Not everyone understands house music. It's a spiritual thing, a body thing, a soul thing, a soul thing.
Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. Today I have a brand new guest. Her name is Savannah, and she is here to talk about her life. So welcome to the show, Savannah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
And I should ask, is your pronouns she?
Well, thank you. If I'm dressed this way, yes. If I'm
Okay.
out in the world in male mode, it's he. So
Okay.
he, him, she, her. Just
Got
pretty
it.
much whatever makes most sense when you see my face.
Yeah, got it. So my Savannah's story is unique to me because I have not heard of this before. Savannah is dual gender, and she has a podcast. She's done some TED Talks. She has a couple of books we'll talk about as well. But I wanted to have Savannah on so I could learn about dual gender and learn about Savannah and learn about, I think it's really important, especially in the world, in the United States, but across the world right now. And again, I don't like to get too political on my show, but it's hard not to with the administration that we have in place at the White House and all these rights being taken away and basic human rights being taken away. And so I think it's important for people to come on and talk about those things in this time. So,
Well,
anyway,
I said I
welcome to my
appreciate
show
you.
overall.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you allowing me to tell a little bit about myself and kind of explain like all the things I've learned about myself over the years, because this is not I grew up knowing this information. So yeah, it's a journey for sure.
Yeah, so tell me first. Tell us what a because you look on Google, and Google's not the answer to everything. You Google dual gender, and you get a lot of different things. So tell me what your definition of dual gender is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I coined it because that would be way too presumptuous. But, if you look at bigender, non-binary, gender fluid, genderqueer, they're all live very nuanced, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I felt dual made most sense for who I am because I'm just as comfortable in my biological male form as I am in my Savannah form.
Okay.
There is no escapism involved. There is no like feeling different about myself. I mean, yes, mannerisms will change, the look changes, comportment changes, the way you kind of touch and are more tactile as a female changes. But, you're going to get the same conversation from me as you in either form. So for me, I feel like it's not like separate. They're together. And because I feel they're together, I feel it's an amalgam. And I feel it's a duality versus kind of like branching apart.
So tell me whenever you discovered this about yourself. Like, were you younger? Was it more recent? And also, when did you act on it?
Woo. Okay, 3 things. So first, between 5 and 7 is when I recognized I was attracted to the feminine in a way that wasn't normal. Obviously, I didn't think about its normality until way later. But when you're a kid, you're like, ooh, I like what the clothes that mommy wears. I love the clothes that get folded on the bed after laundry. And that was kind of like, ooh, that light bulb. Probably closer to late pre-adolescence, I acted on it. Anytime, we were latchkey kids. We're the Gen X generation. Yeah. So we were left at home by ourselves a lot in the very early ages. Yeah. So I found myself able to sneak into my mom's room and feel the slip and feel the satin and check out the little kitten heels, and all those things were very attractive to me. Now, did I know what it meant? No, of course not. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. There was no such thing as transgender in terms of my knowledge.
Where did you grow up, by the way?
I grew up in the Midwest in Detroit.
Okay.
In the Detroit area, lower middle class, Lutheran, which, watered down Catholic. So, there wasn't a lot of information out there. So I both had an affinity for the feminine, and I acted on that impulse, if you want to call it as such, very early in preteen. And discovering who I was didn't happen, or Savannah, as you see her and me now, didn't happen until 1996 when I moved to New York when I was 25, 26 years old, and said, oh, wait, drag queens. Oh, wait, two men holding hands. All the things that I would never had seen growing up in the suburbs outside the Detroit area, find all of a sudden were there in front of me. So that allowed me to further investigate and further come out and further accept the term transvestite, which quickly was rejected because it sounded icky. And then crossdresser was just becoming more the replacement word for transvestite in the 90s. So that's when I adopted that for years and years and years, until I realized more recently, probably within the last 10 years, well, I don't crossdress because I'm a crossdresser. I crossdress because there's something about me from a gender expansiveness that tells me and informs me that I need to use the art and act of crossdressing to exhibit this, to present, to have this identity. And that's where dual gender came from for me.
And so which gender are you more? Are you Savannah or are you the male? Which one are you 50-50? Like which one are you kind of leaning towards, if that's even
Well, are you thinking from a psychological point of view or a physical, biological point of view?
Both, actually.
Okay. Well, like I said, I think it's a duality. I think it's an amalgam. So I'd say 50-50 male, female. Okay. I would say probably if you really pressed me on that, I'd probably say, oh, no. There's more like 35-65 towards the male, because I spend probably 95% of my life male. Okay. I go to work male, I have a male-female relationship. She knows about Savannah, but typically our dynamic is male-female. While a lot of people know about Savannah and about the work I've done, the majority of my family only know Chuck, only know my male side. So yeah, it's very strange to see that only like 3 to 5% of my actual existence presents as Savannah.
Wow. Okay. So people at work do not know this.
It's about 50-50. I've over the years, I've been in the same company for 28 years. And over the years, I've told people as it felt appropriate. And even this weekend, me and my coworker were going to go to the Moulin Rouge musical. And I'm going to be all Savannah-fied. I'm going to be like trying to hit my Christina Aguilera stylings. And she's like my ride or die. She loves Savannah. She loves my authenticity and my vulnerability. And yeah, so there are people who do know that are like right there in my corner every day.
Are you in New York still?
No, I'm in South Carolina, the upstate of South Carolina, actually, which is when all my advocacy started taking place.
Okay.
Which I will expand on that. In New York, I didn't have a need to be an advocate because New York is a massive place with plenty of people doing that work. So I was happy to live in my little bubble, my friend group. I come down to South Carolina and realize it's not as insulated, it's not as shielded. And it took me less than a year to realize that there was a need for me to be more visible, go out in public in the daytime. I have a hashtag Savannah Starbucks Sunday where I just basically go to Starbucks and I just sit and I do my work. I do my writing. I work on the podcast edits. And it's all about just visibility so people can see me.
So my in-laws live in Greenville.
Hey, all right.
And, my in-laws have a, gay son-in-law. All their friends know. They don't. I mean, I guess Greenville could be, it's more of an exception, but they are. No one gives it a second thought, and so they're also. My in-laws are Jewish, living in the South, also. So that's another kind of thing that, a lot of people, and they have a lot of Jewish friends that live there now, but Greenville's, definitely kind of a transplant city in some ways.
Yes.
And so I think that it feels very open there. And I'm actually going to Charleston. Am I going to Charleston or Charleston's on the wall? Yeah, Charleston. Okay. And there's a Bravo show that I watch that's filmed in Charleston. And so I feel like that they're pretty open in Charleston too with the LGBTQ plus culture. But I feel like the rest of the state may be a little different.
Absolutely. It's so funny you say Greenville because I am 35 minutes away from Greenville. I live in
Okay.
Spartanburg County,
Okay.
Greenville
They live in
County.
Simpsonville, actually.
Okay,
So,
well, that's still in Greenville County.
yeah.
And if you build the triangle between Greenville, Spartanburg, and Asheville, North Carolina, it is very progressive in this triangle of queerness. You have a lot of transplants, you have a lot of international business, you have a lot of college students, so they're coming in from all over. So it is not rooted in very conservative Southern culture. It is, obviously, people have lived here in this area many, many years and generations, but there is this very progressive feel in the area that's very, very helpful for me. It's allowed me to become more visible without looking over my shoulder necessarily. But when I moved down here, I really was fearful of what could happen to me as a cross-dressing individual, a man in a dress, and what would the populace think of that. And luckily, people have been very generous, very loving. Like you said with your in-laws, nobody bats an eyelash. So it's been a very positive experience.
So have you had any issues since living there? Have you ever had? No, that's awesome.
No,
I love that.
no.
That makes me feel hopeful.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, people still get kicked out of their family home when they come out as trans or as bi or as queer. It happens. I'm not saying I'm living in a utopia here in the upstate, but I will say that for me, I put out a degree of confidence. I put a smile on my face, and I've had very conservative people come up to me and want to share their story.
Oh,
like
really?
they'll introduce themselves as like, "Hi, I'm just letting you know I'm a Trump supporter, a hardcore Republican, a Baptist, da 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 da." And I'm like, "Okay, let me brace myself for what's going to happen next." It's like, "Can I ask you a question?" And they're doing what we're doing here tonight, just asking about why I do the thing I do, without malice, with intentionality and interest. Mm-hmm. And it's just been lovely. I've like I said, I can't tell you how amazing it's been to be around the lovely people up here.
Yeah. And what does your partner, what does she think about, like, I mean, I guess I'll step back a minute. Did she know about Savannah when you met, or did you have to introduce her to Savannah after you met?
She was introduced. We worked together for over a year before we decided to kick off a relationship. When it started getting serious, meaning, this is going to take a turn into possible long term, I did sit her down and I did the typical, let me show you a photo or a picture of my phone. This is who I am. It's like, "Oh yeah, you dressed like that for Halloween at the office last year." I'm like, no. This is who I am as part of who I am. And she's had to grow with it.
Yeah.
One of her bestest friends at the time, she told her, and that friend had also been in a relationship with a cross-dressing person who was very fetishistic, very much was for bedroom play only, and it was a toxic relationship. So that one experience from the friend really blushed my girlfriend's starting point opinion about somebody like me. And again, it was a lot of time to walk the walk and talk the talk and allay her fears of like, "Are you going to transition?" I'm like, "No, I have no interest in transitioning.
Yeah.
That's not for me." It's like, I'm not a drag queen. I'm not gay. I'm not transitioning. And that's a lot to believe somebody is saying it to you when everything else you hear is contrary to that.
Yeah.
Which is why the first book
especially because she had
came
the
out.
friend that was in a toxic relationship. I'm sure the friend was not super supportive of you because she had to deal with, the toxicity of living with somebody like that was, horrible to them, it sounds like. So
yeah, we went to the same church with her and her daughter. And, like you stand up and you shake hands with each other. And she was very protective of her daughter shaking hands with me. And she told my girlfriend soon thereafter that she felt I was a pedophile.
Oh.
So I think that kind of gives you the degree of how she felt about the community or the cross-dressing community. So it was very sad. I felt bad for my girlfriend for losing a friend like
so
she
no
had with
friends.
that person. No, as soon as that happened, it was one and done. But still, it's very sad to have somebody who had an experience, practical experience, but that become their entire worldview about the community at large versus the individual.
I never understood why the pedophile thing always comes up. I never, but
I mean, there's a philia. Yeah, there's lots of philias, you know. And I think a lot of times, even in the DSM 4 or 3, transvestism or transvestic fetishism was in that diagnostic manual, and it was considered a philia of search. And so, unfortunately, people like just anything that's fetishistic or taboo or strange or different, they want to just group all together that they're doing it now.
Yeah.
Oh, we're grooming your children to, because we're pedophiles and we're all this and that and the other thing. And it's like, dude, we just want to exist in the world. I'm not sure why, and all it is just, attacking and using the clickbait terms and just trying to get fanatical about it. While you've never found, I mean, I'm sure things happen. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is like a 0% error, but the vast majority of people in the queer community are just trying to live life and aren't out there do anything to do anything to your children or to your community.
Like the whole drag queen story hour. It's like, you're worried about a drag queen reading a book to children, but you're not worried about what's all the stuff that happened in the Catholic Church. Not to get too political again, but I'm just like, drag queens are not there to hurt children. They're there to read to them, and it's entertainment. So it's so silly to me. Like I just can't wrap my mind around how people come up with these things.
Well, because you have empathy.
Yeah.
And somebody who's empathetic is like, I hear you. I see what you're saying. My brain just can't compute it as like why a human being would act this way.
Yeah. So do you have other friends that live kind of like, is there a group of people that that are also doing cross-dressing as well? And, like there's meetup groups, and not that there's a meetup group but are there stuff like that you've met other people that do this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first times I went out in South Carolina was a meetup group, and they'd be the first to say it, but it was a bunch of old gay queens, and it was parents of some trans youth, and I think maybe there was one other cross-dresser, self-described, that I had met, and I thought I was going to be the token one, and even the community didn't know what to make of me. Like, I've never met somebody like you, and all of a sudden I was a novelty, and I was like, really? It's like, I didn't feel like I would be a novelty that nobody's ever seen me before. So that's when I met my first cross-dressing person down in South Carolina. It is very closeted down here still. So while I have met people online who live in the greater upstate area, it is very difficult to get people to come out because either their family doesn't know, they don't want anybody in their local community to recognize them. They're so in the closet that everybody around them has to be on hiatus and gone and on vacation for them to even attempt it. So whereas I'm very open, I mean, my neighbors have found out, or I thought they saw me drive up, and I'm like, all right, I guess this is going to happen. So I just went over to them like this and say, hey, by the way, hi, how are you doing?
And what was the reaction?
They loved it. They were amazing. The wife was planting in the front yard, and she looks up, and I don't even think she put two and two together yet. And then she's like, oh, kind of that gasp of surprise and fun. And then the husband came around the corner, didn't know who his wife was talking to until she told him who I was. And then they start talking about a cousin they had and a friend they have that's gay and this and that. And that's what I love about reveals so many times is that it gives the other person the opportunity to share of themselves or people they know because, I have somebody now I can talk to about my situation or my friend or my child or my whatever. And that's, I think, what's the best thing I can find from my advocacy or just being visible. It allows other people to be vulnerable in whichever way they want it to look like. And I think it just gives people opportunity and makes opportunity.
What do you think about the whole, the Trump administration is, and I know it's different than the transgender is different than what's your situation is. No, I shouldn't call it a situation. It's what you're living. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
But, you know, I think the whole LGBTQ plus community is being attacked by the Trump administration in a lot of ways, where,
Mhm.
you know, they don't want, transgender people in the military. They're taking away rights of transgender people. You know, same-sex marriage, which would impact me, is on the table possibly at some point. I mean, they haven't said it for sure, but I think it's on its way. You know, what is your thoughts on everything that's happening now with this new administration that's come in? Because it's making people, I think, have more phobias of things, where I feel like, you know, at one point with Obama and Biden in office, we were pushing forward a lot and for DEI issues, not just for LGBTQ plus, but for all different, all different types of people were kind of being pushed forward.
Right.
And now I feel like we're, being pushed back. And so people that are dual gender like you are not probably looked at as with a happy face if they see you. So, and again, I understand that you're not transgender, you're not transitioning and all that. So you're not looking for gender affirming care and all that other stuff. But still, I think that it's making phobias against you and me and everyone. What's your thoughts on that?
You said a lot. You said a lot. And I'm going to tackle a little bit. I will make a correction, at least my own personal view. Okay. I feel that you don't need to be transitioning in the gender affirming care to be trans.
Okay.
I do feel that I live under the grander trans umbrella.
Okay.
With all the non-binary and genderqueer and gender fluid and transitioning and non-transitioning folk that live under that umbrella. Also, we need to be very careful, because I'm not saying it was co-opted, but transsexual became transgender as the term of choice. So there's both a transgender umbrella and a subset transgender, subset under that. So people who are transitioning either medically, cosmetically, chemically, pre-op, non-op, post-op. There's so many variations in the galaxy of what can be in gender expansiveness. So I'll just put that out there, because some people do feel that if I describe myself as a crossdresser, oh, you're not trans. Well, I am trans because there's a reason why I am doing something non-binary against my biology, and this is the results. Yeah. So it's not because I'm a crossdresser, it's because I'm trans in some way across the genders.
That's really good education to know. That's good.
So, but again, that's my personal belief. I guarantee you can talk to 10 other people that have a different blush of how they see that. How do I feel about it in politics? It's an interesting, it happens all the time when you push forward liberal progressive views, whether it's suffrage, whether it's civil rights, whether it's, gender equality, whether it's gay marriage, whatever it may be, there's always a positive push forward, and then that rubber banding of resistance. When the conservative party or parties or people or governments or whatever commissions decide, oh, that's not what I want, and I don't want that, so I will push against it. That's why we've had 400, 600, 700 state acts and bills put to the floor of different states saying, well, we got to limit trans in sports. We have to limit, affirming care. We're going to make it illegal for a doctor to give you care. So now you're forced to go to a different state. We're going to make sure that your parents know that you want to use different pronouns. I mean, all these things are very marginalizing tactics. It's very scary for both adults and youth. Absolutely. I feel that this is, unfortunately, is just the reaction to progress. Do I hope that, we're not even in 100 days yet of this administration. So we have a long way to go. Absolutely. I agree with you. But if you look at a lot of the things that are coming out in, not opposition, but in defiance or in law or in Supreme Court cases or in whatever it may be, I think what we're finding is that the American public is not as loud on the bullhorn about how they feel about the LGBTQ community as much as what these few people are trying to push.
Yeah. I also think it's so interesting that they're so against anything that's not the heterosexual male, yet Trump wears more makeup than anybody I've seen, and JD Vance with his eyeliner and stuff. And I'm just like, it's like, it's fine. You can wear the makeup and the eyeliner. Who cares? But don't like go and like try to bash other people that are doing similar. I just don't get it. It's like a double standard in a lot of ways.
Well, I mean, but they're performers, they're celebrities. They're not looking to change. I mean, they're trying. JD Vance is trying to enhance his eyes. Of course, we all want to draw to the eyes. Yeah. I would hope that President Trump would maybe hire somebody to help him blend in all the tanning that he has. That being said, you're absolutely right. I was like, I shouldn't make a determination of what either of them want to do. But unfortunately, they don't see it that way. They see themselves as a cis, white, waspy.
Yep.
I want to say Christian, but that probably only applies to one of them. This now becoming a minority in the United States, and they're, I feel, desperate to hold power as much as they can, and they're doing everything they can possibly do to make this a very nationalist, Christian nationalist country, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't like talking politics. I like to just do my thing every day, grind it out, and do my best. But yeah, it is scary for anybody in this country who is an ally, who is in the LGBTQIA plus community, any kind of queerdom, and that's only the start of it. We've seen immigration, we've seen so many things happening, and but we're also starting to see people champion our causes and their own causes, even if it's a non-queer cause. It's Medicaid, it's our retirees, it's our veterans, it's our all the other things. It's just unfortunately being somehow just hit. Everything is being hit in one fell stroke.
And tell me about your TED Talks. You've done 2 TED Talks. Tell me what they were about, and was it exciting? I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
Oh my God, it was terrifying. I'm really good at talking to you.
Okay.
I am not good at memorizing 15 minutes worth of a speech.
Okay.
Which is you have to do it cold. There's no teleprompters when I was doing my TEDx's, which was scary. I'm very much perfectionist when it comes to my story beats. So I was so afraid that I would like miss something, and it's being recorded, and like, how do you go back and change it? Oh, it was a nightmare from a performative point of view. But it was exhilarating this was during COVID, mind you. So at both times, one was in the studio, one was on basically a closed set theater. So I didn't even have the audience to like even make it more terrifying.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. The people who run these TEDx's at these universities are amazing people. The first TEDx was about how do you overcome fear in a vacuum, essentially. So somebody like me who grew up without any support, any community, any information, how do you actually still become authentic when there's nothing to, kind of like a Maslow's pyramid where you have security, you have shelter, you have all your basic needs met, and you have community and unity, and then you become bigger than yourself after having all that. So how do you do that without having any of that?
Mm-hmm.
So it was about, finding your community, overcoming fear, around finding a community, learning about who you are and people like you, and just kind of, angling yourself towards that and towards what feels authentic to you. So that was the first one. That was, what was that? TEDx, North Carolina State.
Okay.
So, and then the second one was in Atlanta, TEDx Emory. And that was about fear. I read something somewhere that was about 13 milliseconds for somebody to make a determination about their surroundings and the people in it. So it takes somebody less than a split second to determine if what they see they find off-putting, they find a threat, they find it to be against their worldviews, as opposed to just walking in and like, I'm not a physical gonna hurt you threat.
Yeah.
But I am a threat to their ideology. So it only takes people with an existing worldview split seconds to determine, yes, I don't like you or I like you. And so it was about overcoming that in this kind of chasm of fear from both sides. I came to the South believing stereotypically that people were going to throw Bibles at me, set me on fire, run me out, out of the county on a rail. All those things I expected to happen because I had a stereotype notion of people in the South, which was not true. And unfortunately, I did the same thing that I thought people were going to perceive me as.
Yeah.
So that's what the second one was about.
And it's, I really think it's great that you've never had any issues with anyone and people are actually curious. But I have to ask, will you, whenever you're retired from your job, will you stay in this area or will you move to a place that's more liberal? Like, would you move, like I live in Boston, would you move to a Boston where you could walk down the street anywhere in Boston and nobody would give you a second look because it's very liberal and people are open? Would you ever want to live in an environment, it's like in New York, no one in New York cares. People just let people live who they are here. Would you ever want to live in a place like that where there would be no kind of fear?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because the cost of living is lower. The quality of life is lower. It takes me 15 minutes to get to my job. Yeah. It is very much, the heart of the Bible Belt, but yet there's so much history down here in the South. You're talking about going to Charleston, beautiful city. There's so much nature here. The mountains, the oceans are close by, lakes, rivers, waterfalls. There's a lot here to enjoy. So would I just give it up because I want to go someplace more liberal? Probably not.
Yeah.
If there was another reason to move that was going to enhance my personal life in some way, then yes, wherever that may take me. But I didn't come to South Carolina because I wanted to. I came to South Carolina because my office had a branch down here that I could laterally move to.
Okay.
So it just worked out that I was coming south. I just didn't think about the things that might happen as a result. But luckily, that hasn't been the case.
And you moved from New York to South Carolina?
Yeah. I was in Queens. I was on Long Island.
That's where my in-laws moved from Long Island down to Greenville.
That's right. They call this the halfback state.
Yeah.
Like you don't go to Florida, but you go half.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they love it. They've been there for a long time and they really do love it. And that's where they're going to retire and die at, they really, and I get it when you're talking about cost of living and all that, because they have a beautiful, huge house. And that house here would be something that I could never afford because because you get so much more for your money there than you do here. So,
and it's growing. The upstate is growing in leaps and bounds, but a lot of people are coming this way. So I only can see it being more progressive, more liberal, more, just new energy. Yeah. I think it's still going to just be the embodiment of the upstate.
On your Instagram channel, you have a crossdresstravel.com. So you're doing I'm just kind of looking at it now a little bit. Do you do different travel adventures with other people?
I was asked to host a couple cruise specific seminars.
Okay.
By the organizers, in an effort to bring in more bodies that might want to see me on the cruise ship and be a part of my workshops. That was the reason for that. I also just came from the Keystone Conference in Pennsylvania. That's a multi-day kind of a conference, and I workshop there. I'll probably end up in Atlanta later this summer and a workshop at the Atlanta Comfort Conference, hopefully. So, this is the first time I've done this type of adventure on a cruise. Okay. Never before. It'll be very interesting. But typically I stay on land and drive to the hotel in question and do my workshops and meet up with my friends. You had asked me earlier about trends. Yeah. And I've gotten through all my channels through these conferences, through just people I meet. And I've gotten a very lovely friend group that people we travel around, that go to Airbnb, and we just meet up like, once or twice a year and then meet at these conferences. It's been lovely the last couple of years to really push into that friend group and having a lot of people that I can hang out with.
And are you getting people in your DMs that have questions and that want to be friends because they're like, oh, I found somebody that understands me, or found somebody that's like me, or somebody that can answer questions for me? Do you get that often?
I do. Not as much as anymore, because now that we have so many episodes in the podcast, I think a lot of people hit that and they get a lot of content from that. But yeah, there are people who will say hi. I'll say hi back. They'll give me a synopsis, a share of who they are in their story. And, I'll applaud them for sharing. And sometimes they want to know, what should they do next? How do I do this? And it may be fashion, it may be style, it may be relationship, it may be self-discovery. And I do try for a little while to give my best advice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, giving advice one text message at a time is not really conducive to an overall self-assessment. So I do point them eventually to the body of work and the books and the TEDx's and all those things, because I think they're going to hear it differently, because it is more storytelling. It's not just me. How do I do this? Answer. How do I do this? Answer. I think it's more enriching to hear like a longer narrative that they can say, oh, I understand what that means, or yeah, that doesn't fit me. And that way you get both the pros and cons for questions you're not even asking to me or yourself. So
tell me about your 2 books.
Well, actually 3 books now, and soon to be 7 books. And that's only in the Savannah side. My male side has a series as well for zombies, if you love zombies. So living with cross-dressing, discovering, I gotta look, what are they called now? Discovering your true identity, defining a new normal. Those are the 2 first books. The first one was about relationships. It was a character study of, why do I do it? Like, what type of cross-dresser can I be? Do I do it to escape? Do I do it because I have trauma? Do I do it because I want to just, get away from life for a minute? Do I do it as a fantasy? Do I want to be the girl next door? There's, a myriad of things that kind of may drive you to be a certain way. Plus, we had stories of 5 couples on Long Island and plus mine and my girlfriend, my current girlfriend, where we talked about like, oh, you've been married for 30 years. And all of a sudden your husband comes to you and says, I like to dress as a woman. And where do we go from here? And those like different stories that may or may not, be something you're aware of.
Yeah.
And so that was book 1. It was all about relationships. It's always about writing that book that my girlfriend, I kept pointing her to other books to read that I had not read. And unfortunately, they all ended up being about transitioning at the end of the day, at the last chapter. And she says, well, the book says you're gonna transition. I'm like, no, I'm not. So I actually decided I'm going to just write the book about the non-transitioning cross-dresser. And then the second book, Discovering Your True Identity, was a kind of like a precursor, a prequel to the first book, because the first book talks about, I've told my partner, and now here we are, what do we do next? What I didn't do was discuss, how do I even get to the point to have that conversation? So it was more of a deeper dive of self-assessment, and again, more of like, why do you do the thing? And just try to really get people to look inward and like discover for themselves like their drive and why. Mm-hmm. And then the last book, very quickly, is called Gender 101, an A to Z handbook and exploration. And this was, I don't know if you remember, but I told you earlier that the word transvestite I thought was very icky.
Yeah.
Well, I've done a 180 on that. And I said, you know what? Why am I so, Magnus Hirschfeld in the 1920s coined that phrase. And I've been trying to distance myself from any affiliation to the word transvestite for years, for decades.
Yeah.
And then I realized that the work that this man had done for the community in pre-Hitler Nazi Germany, I mean, he was giving out like, not pharmacy notes, but it was giving out doctor's notes. So people who were dressed in femme could give it to a cop if stopped. It says, this person needs to dress this way. And they had an understanding that this was okay, and they would just go on their way. So I started realizing that the work that this man had done and the advances he had made and the work he had done in the community was something I should be proud of, not trying to shy away from. So that led me into Gender 101 to really break down both his story, how it affects me, how it affects the community, how it affects transgenderism, as well as give you plenty of ammunition to God says X, Y, and Z. Oh, the animal kingdom, there's nobody else that's transgender. And so I started just poking holes in every defense. Yeah. If that's the case, why do male seahorses, carry the babies? Why does a female hyena have a penis that still has to pop out a kid? So it's like the clownfish. Why, if an all-male school of clownfish, one becomes female? It's like you look at the richness of the ecosystem we live on this planet, and to think that we're the only species that doesn't have transgenderism in it or have things that happen along those scales and those lines, I think is absurd. So that book was all about kind of picking apart all those things and just kind of give you something to think about. How to self-assess, how to look at yourself. How are you perceived? How do you want to be perceived? What if I want to be perceived, but I feel the person's perceiving me in a different way? And it's nature versus nurture is 100 things I was coming up with to try to understand me at that level.
Yeah. Well, I want to just thank you so much for coming on. I mean, you taught me some things, and I never heard of dual gender until you reached out, and I think you really probably educate a lot of people in my audience as well. If you want to learn more about Savannah, she has a link tree. So it's Linktree, and it's / I'll spell it, SAVANNAH I'll also put that in the description of the podcast. So if you didn't write it down, just go to the description of the podcast and it will be there. But I really want to thank you for coming on. You're a fantastic guest. I love it that you're living your authentic self. I love it that you seem like you have a very happy life. You have a great partner, and what else? What more could you ask for? Just being happy. So
just like I said, living my best life as best I can. So.
Well, thank you so much for being on, Savannah. I really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe to my website, check out Savannah's Linktree, and subscribe to my podcast and check out Savannah's Linktree, and shoot her a DM. She is on same name, is on Instagram. So send her a DM and say hello. So thanks very much for being on.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it.
Not everyone understands house music. It's a spiritual thing. A body thing, a soul thing, a soul thing. Not everyone understands house music.